From hidden settings that can affect your gameplay to completely broken troops that can one-shot your king tower, here are 50 Clash Royale secrets. If you've gotten a new phone or tablet in the past few years, there's a good chance that you have a screen that can display up to 120 Hz or 120 frames per second. Well, I'm sorry to tell you may have been wasting these extra frames in Clash Royale all this time, since there is actually a setting you have to turn on to allow the game to run at 120 Hz instead of just 60. After opening the settings in-game, you need to click more settings and then turn higher frame rate to on. This setting will always be set to off by default, so you do have to manually change it. Luckily, you only have to do this one time per device though, and for those who are curious, the same applies to Clash of Clans and some other Supercell games too. Most of us know that the cannon card was taken directly from Clash of Clans, but do you know what level of cannon the art is actually from in that game? I'll give you a few seconds to drop your guesses in the comments. Well, this art was actually pulled from the level 4 cannon, so now you know. Most cards in Clash Royale are purposely given a counterpart in the game. This means that there's another card the developers add which has the same elixir cost as another card, with both cards usually being similar but having key differences that cause them to work well in different decks. For example, the hidden Tesla and the bomb tower are counterparts since they're both 4 elixir buildings, but the Tesla can hit air, has higher DPS, and can hide when not attacking, where the bomb tower has higher hit points and splash damage to compensate. There are plenty of other examples of this in the game, and it can be fun to look through your card collection to see which cards might be counterparts. And before I move on guys, I have to tell you about today's sponsor, Marvel Strike Force. Marvel Strike Force is a thrilling squad-based RPG where you build epic Marvel teams to battle against iconic enemies. New players of this game can unlock up to 17 unique characters in the first 30 days, including Spider-Man, Deadpool, Thor, and more. The game itself is absolutely free to play and allows you to battle with your favorite superheroes and supervillains in an epic fight to save the universe from threats like Doctor Doom and Apocalypse. Your main goal as a player is to power up those characters you play with the most and complete missions to unlock gear and other resources that'll help you along your progress. Like I said before, you can recruit both heroes and villains from across the multiverse, meaning that you could have, for example, a team with Iron Man and Venom on the same team. The game also features a variety of different game modes such as campaign mode, blitz mode, and the arena. On top of that, there's also a massive weekly event called the Alliance War, which is a tournament style event where you face off against other players for epic rewards. The best time to download and play Marvel Strike Force is right now, because this month in December, Marvel Strike Force is releasing a brand new team which will be led by the new character Kahori. And to celebrate the release, they're actually running a free character giveaway this month only, and you can also use code DEC24, that's DEC24, to unlock Captain Carter, Star-Lord, T'Challa, and more, inspired by Marvel Animation's What If series, now streaming on Disney+. So don't wait any longer, use the link in the description or the QR code on screen now to support the channel and have a ton of fun at the same time by downloading Marvel Strike Force. There are only 2 cards in the game which cannot appear in your starting hand. Those cards are the Mirror and the Elixir Collector. When asked why these cards had this restriction added, Supercell responded by telling us that the Elixir Collector in your starting hand would add too much luck to the game, since getting one down early could force your opponent to rush their first move. As for the Mirror, it doesn't appear in your starting hand because you need to play at least one card first so the game knows what to mirror if you play the Mirror. It would actually be quite annoying to start with the Mirror since you'd only have 3 options for your first play instead of 4. The troop with the highest damage in the game is the Mini P.E.K.K.A. Well, technically it's actually the Super Mini P.E.K.K.A, which was a temporary troop with its own event back in the summer of 2022. This bad boy did over 100,000 damage per hit at any level, meaning it could literally destroy your king tower, a golem, or anything else in just one shot. We better be grateful that this thing never got added as a permanent card, but hey, with how OP some of these evolutions have been lately, I wouldn't be surprised if they use this for the Mini P.E.K.K.A evolution concept. The design for the furnace draws heavily from the appearance of a masonry oven, which is essentially a wood-fired pizza oven, but it can also be used for breads and some other baked goods. It's always cool to see where Supercell gets the ideas for the art of different cards in the game. The Evolution Cannon's barrage ability was inspired by the Eagle Artillery in Clash of Clans. Whenever the ability happens, we can see different target icons being placed in the arena wherever the strikes will hit, which is identical to how the Eagle Artillery works in Clash of Clans. The Goblin Brawler that comes out of the Goblin Cage when it's destroyed was actually inspired by the buff Goblin that was featured in a Clash-O-Rama episode. It's cool to see where they got this idea from, and I'm sure Clash-O-Rama fans were happy to see the show inspire an actual troop in one of the games instead of the other way around like it normally is. Another funny feature of the settings menu in Clash Royale is that if you use the slider to change the sound effect volume in the settings, the game will play the sound effect from the standard Laughing King emote. This is funny since the community often uses that emote as a meme, and it's actually one of the most iconic and recognized sounds in all of Clash Royale. The Royal Giant is one of Clash Royale's most iconic cards, and in my opinion, it's one of the strongest win conditions in the game. But did you know that the Royal Giant evolution has a secret mechanic that makes it way more powerful? Not many people know that the evolved Royal Giant's cannonball actually does splash damage. This doesn't come into play in every single battle, since this most often makes a difference when some type of flying card is right above the building that the Royal Giant is shooting at, but when you can pull this off, it definitely gets the Royal Giant just that much extra value. Speaking of evolutions, when the Ice Spirit got an Evo of its own, it actually used to take 3 cycles, meaning you'd have to place the Ice Spirit 3 times during the match, and only on the 4th time would the card actually be evolved. This made it nearly impossible to even play the evolution once during a match unless your deck was extremely cheap and you could forget about playing it multiple times in a match. For this reason, Supercell quickly stepped in and changed it to 2 cycles, which fixed the issue and made players happy again. Did you know that there are only 5 cards in the entire game that are able to take themselves out with just 1 shot? Before I tell you which 5 they are, pause the video and go ahead and comment your guesses down below to lock in your answer. Okay, now that you've made your guesses, the 5 cards are the Bats, Skeletons, Firecracker, Hunter, and Wall Breakers. I'll be impressed if anyone got them all right. We all know that Supercell's had their fair share of mishaps where they've unintentionally left something in the game or caused a bug that they later had to go and fix. But did you know that Supercell actually put the Skeleton Barrel into Clash Royale by accident before it was supposed to be released? Yeah, you heard that right. On October 17th of 2017, the card was available to play inside of the Mirror Challenge even though the card wasn't actually supposed to come out for another week. Supercell did notice this fairly quickly and they were able to fix it with an emergency maintenance break. Some of you might remember that when the Goblin Gang first came out, it actually used to only have 5 goblins in total. Nowadays there are obviously 3 Spear Goblins and 3 Stab Goblins for a total of 6, but the card render in the game actually still only shows 5 goblins to this very day. Do you ever wonder who the voice actors are for different cards in the game? Well, to save money, Supercell actually has some of their voice actors do the voices for multiple cards in the game. For example, the Knight, Barbarian, Electro Wizard, and Lumberjack are all voiced by the same voice actor, John Mondelli. Don't believe me? Check it out.
Hey, my name is John Mondelli, and I'm one of the voice actors in the game Clash Royale.
Zap! Electrify! Timber! Chop, chop!
Speaking of the Barbarians, did you know that the Elite Barbs make the exact same sounds as the normal Barbarians, just slowed down? This one's a fun one to test out for yourself in-game. If you hit the Barbarians with a Snowball or Ice Wizard, they'll become slowed down and they'll actually make the exact same sounds as an Elite Barbarian. If you want to give this a try the other way around, go ahead and throw a Rage Spell on your Elite Barbarians, which speeds up their sounds, causing them to match the sounds of the normal Barbarians. Any of you Clash of Clans players out there may have noticed the game has a few references to Clash Royale hidden around. For example, there's the Clash Royale scenery that shows an arena complete with rockets in the bottom right of the screen when you're using it. Did you know that one of the special decorations from a few years ago in Clash of Clans featured the head of a skeleton dragon? I personally don't have this obstacle, but let me know in the comments if any of you guys do. The Rascals card was originally supposed to be just a knight with 2 archers behind it, kind of like how the Goblin Gang is 2 different troops in one. But Supercell ended up making the Rascals instead, which have very similar stats to a knight and 2 archers. That way they could balance the knight and archers separately without affecting this card too. We all know there are 4 different spirits in the game: Fire, Ice, Electro, and Heal. But did you know that one of these spirit cards actually doesn't have a mouth? That's right, if you've ever looked closely at the card art for each spirit, the Fire Spirit is the only one that doesn't have a mouth. Speaking of spirits, this next fact applies to all 4 of them inside the game. Whenever a spirit jumps, it instantly becomes considered a projectile while it's in the air, and it's no longer considered a troop in the game's code. We can see proof of this by looking at the touchdown game mode, where we can see that if a spirit jumps into the end zone, it won't actually score a touchdown. And that's pretty much the only useful situation to know this fact in, but hey, it's a pretty cool fact to know either way. Like other swarm cards in the game, the minion horde is actually cheaper than just playing 2 sets of normal minions, since that would cost 6 elixir and the horde only actually costs 5. You may think that this means to always go with the swarm version since it's cheaper per troop, but you actually want to be careful, as the other side of that coin is that your opponent can get way more value from their spells like the arrows and fireball, so maybe try splitting up your minion horde next time you use it. The Dark Prince actually used to be a royal recruit. Yup, if you look at the description for the royal recruits, it says that they dream of ponies and one day wearing metal buckets. It's quite obvious that this is referring to the Dark Prince, since that's the only card in the game that actually fits that description, so we can safely assume that each royal recruit actually has the chance to get promoted one day into a Dark Prince. When you upgrade the Spear Goblins to Star level 3, you can see that they get a cool red mohawk. But did you know that this is actually a reference to Clash of Clans? That's right, when you upgrade your goblins to level 6 in Clash of Clans, they get the exact same mohawk as well. This next one's another that you observant players might have noticed before. If you look at the card render art for the minions, you'll see that their eyes are actually purple. Well, when you play the minions in game, you can see that their eyes are actually flaming red. Not only that, but the wiki suggests that the minions' eyes actually used to be team colored, meaning blue if they were your own minions and red if they were your opponents. Whenever a knight goes down in Clash Royale, I'm sure you've noticed that he drops his sword, which sticks into the ground and stays there for some time. But did you know that there are actually a total of 10 different cards in the game that do this? Beyond just the knight, you can also see the Rascal Boy, Mega Minion, Dark Prince, Executioner, Mega Knight, Sparky, Fisherman, Golden Knight, and Little Prince all drop drop their weapons upon being defeated. This is purely a visual thing as the weapons can't actually be picked up and used later, but hey, it's still cool to know nonetheless. Something really strange about the giants in Clash Royale is that while the Royal Giant appears to be wearing some chainmail armor, he actually has less hit points overall than the normal giant. This doesn't make a lot of sense for obvious reasons, but maybe the giant just has some superpowers we don't know about, or maybe he's even wearing a bulletproof vest underneath that shirt. This at least makes sense from a balancing point of view, since the Royal Giant is only 1 extra elixir and has a range attack, so he probably would be a little broken if he had the same health as the giant. The skeletons are one of the least often cards to appear in balance changes. This is because the skeletons appear in a whopping 6 different cards in the game, being the skeletons, witch, graveyard, skeleton barrel, tombstone, and skeleton king. If Supercell ever did decide to throw Larry into the balance changes again, it would surely be a nightmare for the other cards involved, since they would all get changed too. Speaking of balance changes, do you know that there's only one permanent card in the entire game that has never been included in a balance change update? This card is the Electro Spirit. Supercell obviously did an amazing job choosing the stats and cost for this card, since it's been strong but never overpowered ever since it got released in game. The Traitor is a concept that exists in both Clash of Clans and Clash Royale, but did you know that he's actually the exact same character in both games? That's right, if you look at the Traitor in Clash of Clans on the top left side of your base, and then look at the Traitor in the Clan tab in Clash Royale, you'll see that he looks the exact same in both games. The Sparky and the Firecracker are the only 2 cards in the game that have recoil when using their main attack. This doesn't mean a lot for the Sparky since it's heavier and attacks much slower, but for the Firecracker, as I'm sure we're all painfully aware of at this point, it can very easily cause her to avoid your arrows or whatever other spell you're firing her way. When the skeletons were first released in game, some of you veterans out there might remember that the card actually used to spawn 4 skeletons. Nowadays it only spawns 3, but I'm sure you can imagine how powerful the card was with 4, since it's still very powerful today if used properly. I swear the skeletons could nearly fully counter a P.E.K.K.A on their own back in the day. That extra skeleton really made a difference. If you've ever stopped to look a little bit closer at the archers in Clash Royale, you might have noticed that they have a quiver on their back. This makes sense since they need extra arrows to fire while they're alive in game. But did you know that the archers don't actually even reach back to grab the arrows from the quiver when firing? Yeah, the next arrow just magically appears in their hand after every shot. Again, maybe the archer just has some magical powers that are beyond our understanding or something. The bomber in Clash Royale was very likely inspired by the wall breakers from Clash of Clans. Funnily enough, the bomber then ended up getting added to Clash of Clans in the builder base update, and then Supercell added actual wall breakers to Clash Royale. This means that 2 troops were pretty much created out of nothing, but I don't think anyone's complaining. If you go to statsroyale.com and type in your player tag, you'll be able to see the next few chests in your cycle, as well as how close you are to getting big chests like the Royal Wild chest and the Mega Lightning chest. This is very useful to get an idea of where you are in your chest cycle and see if you're close to getting a good one. Not only that, but you can also see a lot of other information about your profile, such as your total donations, wins, and more. So click the link in the description or go to statsroyale.com after you finish the video to check out your profile. The Clash Royale arena may look symmetrical, but it's actually not. You see, due to small differences in the arena depending on which side you're on, some troop interactions can be different from game to game. When you get matched up for a game in Clash Royale, you're either assigned to true red or true blue depending on what side of the arena you're on. This is unfortunately random and there's no way you can choose for yourself. A good example of the differences this causes is when you use your goblin drill, as the drill will land in a different spot depending on which color you are. This is a very small difference that most players won't notice, but it is a crazy detail that I'm surprised the devs haven't patched yet. There are so many banners and badges in Clash Royale nowadays, but did you know that there's actually a secret banner that almost nobody actually has? During the release of the Book of Clash series in 2023, Supercell made a secret link that you could follow to claim a banner featuring the Hog Rider and Super Hog Rider from the book series. This exclusive offer didn't last long, and many players didn't find out about it until it was too late. So if you see someone out there with this banner when playing, make sure to send them a cool emote to pay your respects. Every card in Clash Royale can be played across any game mode of your choice, or at least that's what you probably think, but you've been lied to. The Baby Goblin's Tower Troop is actually the only card in the entire game that can only be played in one game mode, which is the Goblin Queen's Journey. Even the other Goblin cards that came out with the Goblin Queen's Journey, such as the Goblin Demolisher, have since been allowed to be used in ladder games, Trophy Road, and even challenges, but the Baby Goblins are still banned. Most people think the Monk card can reflect any projectile in the game. Well, that's not actually true. The Ice Spirit, Fire Spirit, Heal Spirit, and Electro Spirit are all technically actually considered projectiles in the game's code once they've jumped to perform their attack. While that is true, the Monk will not reflect them if they jump at him during his ability. If Supercell treated the spirits like other spells, you'd expect them to be shot back to the opponent's tower in this case. This doesn't happen though, which is unfortunate because it would be funny to see some cursed interactions like a Heal Spirit healing a tower if this actually worked. We all know that scrolling up on the Path of Legends will bring us to the leaderboard section at the very top, which shows the top 3 players in the game at a given time. But if you've ever scrolled up even further, you may have noticed a sneaky little goblin hiding in the top right corner. It takes a little bit of practice to do this since your phone will automatically snap down to the next screen if you let go, but give it a try next time you're playing. And hey, speaking of that goblin, he actually told me he wants you to subscribe to the channel, so maybe consider doing that. There is no book of champions in the game. There is a book for every other rarity in the game, including commons, rares, epics, and legendaries. So why isn't there a book of champions? Well, there is one book in the game that can be used to upgrade your champions, and that's the Book of Books, which used to be available every single month in the past Royale for only $4.99 a couple years back. Unfortunately, this book can now only be obtained from lucky drops with an extremely rare chance of that happening, or by spending real money in the shops when it's available. So if you ever get one of these books, make sure and hold on to it, and don't you dare waste it on a different rarity unless your champions are already maxed out. The Tombstone and the Furnace were both inspired by obstacles from Clash of Clans. We'd like to think the devs spend a lot of time brainstorming and coming up with brand new ideas for all the cards in Clash Royale. And while they usually do, sometimes they simply just copy and paste from another supercell game. For example, the Halloween headstone from 2014 in Clash of Clans looks eerily similar to the Tombstone, which was one of the first cards added to Clash Royale back in 2017. The devs actually got the idea for the Furnace in the exact same way, as there used to be a Clash of Clans obstacle for Halloween of 2015 that looked like a cauldron with purple liquid inside. That might just sound familiar because this design ended up being copied over and changed a little bit to create the Furnace that we all know and love today. I wonder if the devs will do this with any other obstacles in the future. Almost every single troop card in Clash Royale has its very own emote. Some of them have multiple, and even the evolutions get a few emotes of their own each month as they're released. That being said, there isn't a single spell card in the game today that has its own emote. At least that used to be the case until a few months ago when Supercell added the Evolve Zap to the game, which came with this exclusive emote that you see on screen now, showing the spell being used on the king. Because of this, Supercell will likely add emotes for the other spells too once they get evolutions of their own. We all know it can be easy to activate your king tower by placing a card in the middle against your opponent's firecracker, since the backsplash damage will end up hitting your king. But what most people don't realize is that interactions like this are way easier to pull off in the 2v2 game mode, as the firecracker, for example, will activate your king tower all on its own by simply shooting at one of your towers, since everything's more scrunched together. So next time you see a firecracker come across the bridge in a 2v2 match, make sure to ignore it and just hope and pray that your opponent ignores it too, so you can get that free activation. Speaking of other game modes, I can't be the only one that gets mad at the Goblin referee in the touchdown game mode. His whistle can be annoying, especially when your opponent barely scored a touchdown on you the round before, so if you've ever wanted to take him out, you're not alone. Well, you'll be happy to find out that you can take him out. The timing isn't always easy, but with some practice, you can actually hit him with a spell as he's running off the field and he will go down. Kind of a waste of elixir if you ask me, but sometimes you just have to do it. When star levels were first released in Clash Royale, players soon noticed that a lot of the golden skins were references to different building and troop levels in Clash of Clans. For example, once you unlock the second star level on your Inferno Tower, it gains these spikes on the side, which look just like the level 3 Inferno Tower in Clash of Clans. Another example of this is the second star level for the hidden Tesla, which features the signature golden coil from the level 6 Tesla in Clash of Clans. These aren't the only examples though, as we see a similar story with the minions, goblins, and others. Clash Royale has several hidden Easter eggs in it that reference another Supercell game called Brawl Stars. The most obvious ones come from Electro Valley, which is the 11th arena on Trophy Road. This arena's scenery features a cactus that is a reference to Spike from Brawl Stars, as well as the Brawl Stars logo and a small star on the bottom right corner. The references don't stop there though, as there is a message that you can actually sometimes get on the loading screen which says that there are tales of a mechanical wizard from a distant land. This message is a reference to Wizard Barley, another character from Brawl Stars. Brawl Stars isn't the only game that's referenced in Clash Royale though, as the Barbarian Bowl arena is pretty much completely pulled from Clash of Clans. As you can see, the obstacles, decorations, barracks, and pretty much everything else is directly copied over from Clash of Clans, which makes sense since most of the cards in the game are also based on Clash of Clans troops since the game came out first. The lucky drops were recently reworked to include 4 different types, with 1 star being a common drop, 2 stars for rare, 3 stars for epic, and 4 for legendary. But in extremely rare cases, the drop can be upgraded to have a 5th star, which is a champion drop, giving you extremely valuable rewards. I've only seen one of these so far, even though I opened several drops every single day, and it actually ended up giving me a Book of Books, which is equivalent to $20 of real money. With how crowded the shop tab has gotten over the years, it can be annoying to scroll all the way to the bottom to get free rewards or enter a creator code. Lucky for you, if you tap the shop icon again, it'll cycle between the different sections of the shop, allowing you to navigate to the item you're looking for in a matter of seconds. Where's this tip been all my life? Clash Royale used to have a hidden feature that you could only see while editing your deck in Trophy Road. This feature would allow you to generate new decks using a few cards of your choice as a base. This feature was awesome for finding out new and exciting decks to try out, but unfortunately Supercell decided to remove this feature only a couple of weeks ago. Only about 5% of you watching this video right now are actually subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoyed the video or maybe learned something new, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you won't miss another upload. My goal is to get that number up to 20% by the end of the year, which is just a couple of months away, so if you want to help me reach that goal, I'd really appreciate it. Also, I'd love to hear which secret was your favorite in the comment section down below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.